Hi, it's Rob from Game Developer Studio. This is the preview of GDS Editor 1.6.56, which is live on site now. As always, if bugs have been introduced into this new version that I didn't catch in testing, you can roll back to the previous version of the editor from the help menu at the top, and broken version, use version 1.655. So let's go over some of the newly added functions, and this month or this edition I've mostly been focused on one single new feature for GDS Plus users, which is the auto animations feature. If you were on Discord, you might have seen some of the previews I posted. Also added a few quality of life improvements for using the editor, which are available for all users, Core and Plus, and some bug fixes which got introduced in the last version. So to demonstrate some of the new improvements, I'm going to open this blank scene and I'm going to open the library window, and as you can see, I've added some filtering keyword buttons to the library, so now you can search, whereas before it was only all assets. You can now filter by items in the library. So if we go to all assets, that will return it back, and we go to glows, we can filter. Later on I'll be adding more of those as I add more assets to the essentials library. I've also added import to new category, so now you can pick if you want to import to a new scene. When you import from the essentials library, you can select new scene, and if you want it to go into a new category as well, we can click add a new category. So let's import these crates, and we're going to import them, and as you'll see, it's put in a new category. The main category is empty and the new category contains the assets. So if you're uploading or importing lots of assets from either the library or your local drive, let's import another one to demonstrate. Let's import these. Import anyway. As you can see, each new import puts us in a new category. So then we can use the category select button to only select and manage assets in that category. The category select button adds assets to the selection, so if you go through each one, it'll add. So you must unselect by off clicking before selecting. Let's delete these. Okay, so we've got some crates in the scene now, and another quality of life improvement is standard palette functionality. So I've rewritten how the palette works. So now if you want to move components up and down or select, you can just drag them into position on the palette. Selecting items in the palette, we can press Control to add to the selection. If an item's already selected, you can press Control and it will remove it from the selection. If you want to list select, you can hold Shift and it'll add the items in a list to the selection. So we can select from top to bottom or from any point. Pretty much how the File Explorer works in Windows and Mac. You can also hold the Alt or the spacebar key if you're on Firefox, and the scene will move to that component or bring that component into focus in the center of the scene. So if you ever want to find a component, hold Alt and click on its palette item, and it will move the scene to that component. So whilst we're on the topic of selecting, I've been told by users on Discord that on Mac, that the Control key is generally for adding to a selection, and the Shift key is generally used for dragging a selection box. So if you're on Mac or you prefer those modification keys, you can invert them in the application settings. So that's the application settings button, and invert select keys. And now you can use Control to add components to your selection, or Shift to draw a rubber band selection box. Okay, so now I've got some components in the scene. I'm going to show the animation option. So let's just grab this crate. Let's put it here for the moment. I'm going to hide this so we've got more scene area to work with. I'm going to drag this over to the left a bit because we're going to open the new auto-generated animations button, which is here. So these are properties of components. So remember, on the right side of the screen are the component properties. Every time you select a component, you can explore the properties on that component, just like a game engine. So let's select this crate and let's go over to the auto-generated animation properties. Let's open that, and as you can see, there's no animations added to this component yet. Let's add a new animation. We're going to add a destruction animation to this. So this is a self-destruct, and as you can see, it's made a new animation and put that on our palette. To view that animation, we're going to just select the item and it will open up the properties. So all you have to do is select a destruct for it from the preset drop-down list. So if we select blast apart, we can press play and it will generate an explode animation for us. There's quite a few presets: tornado, bounce break. You can tweak this to your heart's delight, and if you want to get really detailed, the editor also exposes all the fragment animations. So if you want to have a play around with that, you can, but if not, you can just simply use the drop down list and add the animation you want. Once you've picked an animation, then you can edit the playback speed, the mask type, and the mask size, which is a percentage of the size of the sprite. So if you put it at 200%, it's big, 50% will make a smaller one. Once you've decided on your animation, all you have to do is rename it. And that animation is now on this component's animation list. You can add multiple animations to each component, so you can have 2 or 3. Let's just add a new animation each time you want a new animation. Let's add a blow away. You'll have to, after you've added the animation, you'll have to rename it. And now you've got some animations. We can use the batch exporter to export in keyframes, sprite sheet, or a Godot. There's a Godot importer available on GitHub, and may possibly be bugs. I'm not a Godot developer, so if you find a bug, just let me know and I'll try and fix it. You can set the export rate or the sample rate to adjust the amount of frames. So if you've got large animations or long duration animations, you might want to do that, especially if you're using keyframes. If you're using sprite sheets, you'll have to be aware that this might output large scale animations, but the options are there for different export types. I have started working on a Unity one, but I'm not a C# programmer either, so that's still in progress. If anyone wants to help me with that, they can get in touch on the Discord and I'll send you what I've got. As well as self-destruct animations, there's also component movement animations. To demonstrate that, I'll quickly make a sprite. Let's bring in the monster pack and quickly make a sprite to add some movements to. Make a bit of a better example than a crate. Okay, so here's a little sprite. Let's go ahead and add some movement animations to him. So again, click on the edge, click on the animation property, click on the animation property, add new animation, movement, and let's check out the movement. So if we want an idle state for him, we just add the idle animation. Again, if you want the animation, you can name it and add it to the animations. And if you want him to have another movement, idle, let's make him jump. He can wobble. So these animations are useful for other things like UI animations. All you have to do is select the animation you want and add it to the component. If you want to make a component move, jump, shuffle, caterpillar, a die animation, top down components jumping, UI buttons being tapped, pressure, swinging animations. So there's quite an array of animations that you can add, as well as the quality of life improvements and the new animation features. I also fixed a few bugs, such as the path components were not maintaining their position, meaning when you control Z or move them around or align them, they would lose their original position. That's been fixed. Categories can no longer be duplicate named, whereas before you could duplicate name categories, which when calling export on components in the category would delete the existing category names from the folder. You can still have duplicate names on components. If you want to change the name on a component, it's F2 to change the name, but the editor still allows duplicate names on components. If you want to export multiple components, the exporter will rename them if there's duplicate names existing. Currently, animations can only be applied and played on one component at a time. There's no group animation function where you can add multiple animations to multiple components and play them in sequence at the same time. You can only add one animation to one component. Later update, I'm probably going to add some kind of feature like that, but this is just the first iteration of the animation features. So originally it was just going to be the destruct animation, but then I added the movement animation, which basically shares the same animation motor as the destruct animation, but treats the sprite as a single particle. Later on, there will be the group animations, possibly with keyed animations, so you can animate groups of components together. But for now, it's just one animation per component. Another small feature that was added this update is the grid generator, which will generate a grid for you if you need to quickly add a table. So it's probably not very useful for game development, but if you're using GDS editor for quickly making documents, which it can do that, then this might be useful. So you can make a grid, a 10 by 10 grid with a cell width 50 by 50 pixels, and it will generate that for you. So the grid it generates is a path, so you can use the fill options as if it were a brush stroke. You can manipulate each line and fill, so if you don't want to fill, and as it's a path, that means it's a brush stroke, so you can add your own brush strokes to it. You can make grids with different sizes, so 10 by 10 cell width. It doesn't have to be a square grid. So again, probably not very useful for game development, but if you're making layouts and pages and documents, it might be useful. I've done my best to test the new features, but if anybody finds any bugs, let me know on the Discord channel and I'll get them fixed as soon as I can. So that's it for updates on the new editor. Thanks for your time and thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.